So there are a few parts that you need to understand in any programming language. One is, let me just write it down in here. Write it down. So you'll be learning variables, 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 and text to it. Okay. So you'll be learning variables here, variables, and you'll be learning functions basically, functions, functions, and loops, conditions, a lot more like this. Okay, these are kind of like the basics. You need to first understand. Today we're going to be I'm just going to be teaching you about these variables. In C, we have some set of variables. Before I dig into these variable functions, and I'm just going to be talking to you about the basic and how C is compiling programs. In every programming language, there is a way that the code is being executed. Just let me know if you don't understand me, okay? හැම programming language එකකම ක්‍රමයක් තියෙනවා. මේ කියන්නේ source code එක නිකන් ලෙව්වට හරියන්නේ නැහැ. හිතන්න මොකක් හරි source code එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ source code එක නිකම්ම ගහලා run කියලා එව්වොට ඒකේ background process එකක් එනවා. එතකොට මේ background process එක C වල එක විදිහට එනවා. C වල අපි එකට කියන එක compiling method එකකින් ඒකේ තියෙන source code එක convert වෙනවා assembly code එකකට. ඊට පස්සේ assembly code එක තමයි execute වෙන්නේ මේ අපේ processor එකේ. හරිද? එතකොට කොහොමද C වල ඕක වෙන්නේ? C වල මුලින්ම ලියනවා අපි source code එක. මුලින්ම කියන C වල මේ සාමාන්‍ය file extension එක වෙන්නේ .c. In a C programming file, the file extension comes as .c. The file ends with .c. Let's see that we have a file called we have a file called the Hello World program. Hello World, and the extension should be as .c. This is going to be the file extension. .c is the file extension. Into the file extension, it's unique to C programming language. That's how we represent that this file belongs to a C programming language. Okay, and next we need to learn how a C file is being executed. First stage, this is the source file. Say that we have this file, the hello world. .c contains this code. Say that we have a code, just return something. Okay, this returns. This is the source code. These are called source codes. What's happening inside the compiler is when we execute the file, it just grabs the source code and it just gives the source code to a preprocessor. The preprocessor is something that processes your file and finds for bugs, finds for errors. If there's any error, so they just indicates you in the terminal that there's error here on this line, you need to fix it before going into the compiler. So if there's no any error, the compiler gets the file, compiler gets the source code, and then it just translates that into assembly code. Assembly code is the one that is directly communicate with the processor. So, and then when the code is converted to assembly, and there's something called, this is unique to C programming, linker. Linker is kind of unique mechanism of translating code to machine code in C programming language. So this linker executes the file in the processor. That's how processing happens in a C programming language. Hopefully you understood that. I don't know. Let me tell that in English. Source code එක මුලින්ම අපි program එකට දැම්මට පස්සේ ඒක මුලින්ම යනවා pre-processor කියලා stage එකකට. එතකොට pre-processor stage එකේදී කරන්නේ ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපේ අර file එකේ තියෙන මේ මොන හරි errors මොන හරි bugs මොන හරි තියෙනවා නම් errors මොන හරි තියෙනවා terminal එකේ අපි මේ run කරන terminal එකේ පෙන්නනවා මෙන්න මෙහෙම error එකක් තියෙනවා මෙන්න මේ file එකේ එහෙම කියලා පෙන්නනවා. එහෙම එතකොට එතනින් එහා යන්නේ නැහැ ගොඩක් වෙලාවට. එතකොට මේ හිතන්න දැන් අපි ගාව මුකුත් error මුකුත් නැහැ කියලා. එතකොට අපි ඕක යනවා compile කියන stage එකට. ඕකේ තමයි compile එක. ඔතන තමයි කරන්නේ source file එක. source file එකේ තියෙන source code එක assembly code එකකට convert කරනවා. assembly code එකට convert කරලා ඊට පස්සේ assembly code එක මේ අන්තිමට තියෙන අපේ machine code එකට convert කරනවා. එතකොට ඒක වෙනවා assembly එකකින් linker. linker කියන කැලේ ඉන්නේ ගොඩක් කරලා C වලට ගොඩක් unique එකක් ඒක. linker කියන එකෙන් කරන්නේ අර assembly code එක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම convert කරන machine code එකට සහ ඒක execute කරනවා ඊට පස්සේ finally in the processor. ඒක ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ඔයාලට බලා ගන්න පුළුවන් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ඔයාලා source code .c file එකක් හදලා ඒක execute කරාට ගොඩක් වෙලාවට files තුනක් හැදෙනවා. එකක් තමයි .i කියලා එකකින් හැදෙන extension එකකින් හැදෙන file එකක්. ඊට පස්සේ .s කියලා extension එකකින් තව file එකක් හැදෙනවා. .o කියලා extension එකකින් තව file එකක් හැදෙනවා. හරිද? එහෙම තමයි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් execution එක වෙන්නේ C program එක. මේක නිකන් ඔළුවේ තියාගන්න. මේක ලොකුවට අර මේ දැනට භාවිත වෙන්න ගන්න ඔළුවේ තියාගන්න කවදා හරි දවසක මේක උඩක් ඕන වෙයි. Okay, so now let's go to the variables. Variables is a nice part in almost every programming language. So we have some most common variables, like in every language. There might be some, some of you have learned about JavaScript, probably Java, probably Python. So in any programming language, we have some set of variables that are like common to everything. Okay, so here we have few variables that are common to any programming language. So inside the variables, let me go ahead. Variables. We have variables like integer. Int. We specify the variable name as int, and we say this is an integer variable. Integer variable. Okay, this is an integer variable. This just holds the data. This just holds numeric values with no floating points, which means the round values like 1, 40, 56, and 79, the numbers like this. But this variable type doesn't contain any number that has a floating point. Like, let's say that there is a number called 1.56. This is not going to be this is not an integer value. This can be, and there's one specific dedicated variable type of having the floating points. That's called a float. There is another variable type called float, which holds the values with floating points. Let's say that we have number like 159 and 8.9, and probably I have 1.0. So that is the variable type for storing data, storing floating points. And we have another one which is called string. String is a nice variable type which holds your what I say it's your statements, your wordings. Let's say that in a string we store the words and sentences. Let's play sentences. Right. All right. So this is the string. So it just combines a string is a variable type that stores multiple characters in a one variable. And there's another variable type called char. Char, you should know about this. Char is a variable type that just contains only one letter. Let's say that char can only have A, or it could have B, it could have C here. The char variable type contains only one single letter. But let's say that there's a char variable and it just contains like this A, B, C, D, one, it's called, one chord. And so this one's not a char variable type, this one's wrong. The char only contains one single letter. And if you need to like store this value in a variable, that's going to be the string type. This is going to be a string type of variable. So these are the basic, and there are more. And there's another one called boolean. There's another one called boolean. Boolean is not something that comes with the base of the C programming language, because, like, you might know that in JavaScript, Boolean is a data type, and in Java, Boolean becomes a data type. In C++ also, I think Boolean is a data type, but in C, Boolean is not a data type. It's something that we need to import. I'll teach you how to do importings and the other stuff. Boolean is something that we need to import. It's not something comes with it. It's not a default data type. Not a default data type in C. Okay, so we need to import it, but we can use this. Okay, right. So integer කියන්නේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් floating points නැති දශම ස්ථාන නැති මොනවා හරි numeric දේවල් store කරලා තියාගන්න නම් integer කියන variable type එක තමයි අපි use කරන්නේ. එතකොට මේ integers වල අපිට දශම ස්ථාන තියෙන සංඛ්‍යා store කරන්න බෑ. ඒ දශම ස්ථාන තියෙන සංඛ්‍යා store කරන්න අපිට තියෙන තව data type එකක් float කියලා කියනවා. floats වලදී අපිට පුළුවන් ඕනම දශම ස්ථාන තියෙන සංඛ්‍යාවක් save කරන්න. ඉතින් අපිට මේ මොකක් හරි දශම ස්ථාන නැති සංඛ්‍යාවක් float එකට save කරොත් අපිට output එක ගන්නදී ගොඩක් වෙලාවට දශම බිංදුව වගේ, කියන්නේ අන්තිමට add වෙලා තමයි output එක පෙන්නන්නේ. තව data type එකක් තියෙනවා string කියලා එකක්. එතකොට මේ string එකේදී වෙන්නේ, ඒකෙදි පුළුවන් අපිට letters ගොඩක් එකට තියන්න. හිතන්න මොකක් හරි wordings, මොන හරි words, sentences, මොන හරි string වල අපිට ගබඩා කරලා තියාගන්න පුළුවන්. මේ එතකොට character කියන්නේ මේ char කියන එක තියෙනවා. char කියන්නේ character කියන එක යන මුල් කැලල අරගෙන තමයි char කියලා හදලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒකේ නිතරම store කරන්නේ එකම එක මේ letter එකක් විතරයි. ඒක multiple letters තියන්න බෑ. multiple letters තියන නම් ඒක string එකක් වෙනවා. එක්ක array කියලා concept එකක් තියෙනවා. මම ඒක කියලා දෙන්න. array කියන concept එක එක්ක යනවා ඒක. හරි, එහෙම තියෙනවා. මේ boolean කියන කතන්දරේ bool කියන්නේ ඔයාලා දන්නවා ඇති ගොඩක් වෙලාවට A level වලට කරා නම් මේ boolean කියන්නේ සාමාන්‍ය එක true එක false. true or false කියලා තියාගන්න එකක් තමයි boolean එක කියන්නේ. එතකොට boolean එක default data type එකක් නෙමෙයි C වල. C වල boolean කියන කතන්දරේ වෙනම එන්නේ. C වල boolean එන්නේ අපිට පුළුවන් ඔකේ external libraries මේ import කරන්න පුළුවන් අපේ C file එකට. අන්නේ ෆයිල් එකට external මොකක් හරි එකක් import කරොත් ගොඩක් වෙලාවට මේ boolean එක අයන්නේ වගේ import කරන්න ඕනේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපිට පුළුවන් enum කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා. enum එකක් හදලා bool කරන්න පුළුවන්. bool එක මේ ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේ පොඩි කතන්දර ටිකක් තියෙනවා මම ඒක කරන්න හැටි ඔයාලට පෙන්නන්නම්. boolean කියන්නේ default data type එකක් නෙවෙයි කියලා ඔළුවේ තියාගන්න. නිතරම කොහේ හරි දැනගෙන අහුවොත් C වල boolean කියන්නේ default data type එකක් නෙවෙයි. right? okay. හරි. අපි මේ මම කියන්න කොහොමද code editor එක code editors දෙක තුනක් තියෙනවා අපිට C කරන්න. or Ubuntu එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ Windows වගේ use කරනවා නම් ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ඔයාලා code blocks කියලා එකක් තියෙනවා. We have some few code editors for building C applications. If you use Windows, there's called CodeBlock. CodeBlock is a nice editor. We call this an IDE. So where you can download this one. If you have a operating system of Windows or Linux, you can just download this and install. And this is one of the best tools for developing your C application. I recommend this. You could just go ahead, download and install this one. This one's nice. And today we're not going to be coding inside this IDE. We're not using this IDE. We have an online IDE called Program, which is a C compiler. And if you just search here, C compiler, the first link you get this one, programiz.com, whatever. So you just go ahead and you're gonna see a bunch of sample code. We have this code compiler here. Okay, I'm gonna be using this one. Okay, let me just first tell you the structure of a C programming source code. This is the basic structure. C is a structured programming language. Before I start, I should have mentioned it. C is a structured programming language, which means that we use only one single file to do all the source codes. Okay, so inside the source code, you can see some brackets, you can see some curly brackets, you can see something like printf, you can see some words in these kind of signs. I don't remember the name of it, sorry. And there is something called include. These all are things that I'm going to teach you right now. Okay, in the first line, you can see slash include studio.h. We call this header section. Header section. What we do here is, let's say that we have a file with some code. Let's say that we have a file that just do some mathematic part. So for that, we don't want to like code here in this one, the same code in two files. We don't want to do that, but we could instead code some sort of code in another file, and we could just simply import that into another source code like this. Here, studio.h is a file that contains some piece of code. What this program does here is that it just grabs all the code from studio.h and imports that into this main.c file. That's what it's doing. Include is something that just imports source code from whatever that is mentioned here, whatever that is specified here. That's what it's doing. Okay, and there's this main part. This is called a function or a method. Some people call it method, some people call it functions. That's okay, that just depends. Okay, a function or method. And inside this method we have this curly braces. In C program language, a method starts from a starting curly brace and ends with an ending curly brace. Start and end. Inside, whatever we write inside these curly braces is the method body. This is going to be the method body. It's method body, and we also have a method name. Okay, okay. Let me just simply tell you what are the main parts here. Let's say that. Say that. And 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 so I could have done this earlier. Sorry. And and here, hopefully you can see this. Same statement. Right, this is the basic method of the C programming. That's the first method that you see. That's the first function that you see when you first try to do something with C sharp. Sorry, not C sharp, C. Okay, so this is the first. This is the first thing. This one's called the method returning data type. Method returning data type. Okay, so what's the method returning data? The returning data type. And here on the other hand, we have this method name. Name. Method name. These are all statements. These are all statements. 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 in the return. So it's the return. So the return. Okay. Okay, the first thing is the data type. This could be anything. Probably, I just told you that we have some different variables. It could be integer, it could be a string, it could be char, it could be float, doesn't matter. This could be anything, any variable type. And here, this just specify what this function returns. When someone calls this function is something that is callable. That means that inside our program, we can call the function anywhere we want. That's something that returns. This one is the one that the function returns. We say that this function returns only a number. That's how we indicate it. But if you want, if you simply need to say that this function returns a string, we will change this to string. And this one's the name. Name means something that if you need to call the function, if you need to execute this part, whatever it mentioned inside this curly braces, if you need to execute it, we need to call the function. That's how we call it. This one's used for calling the function. That's called the method name or the function name. And these are the statements. This could be anything. Probably another method, probably another function, or probably something like, let's say that we need to, if you need, we could simply just say it's equals one class two. This is also a function. This is also a function. This is a function, and you should remember that every function, every function ends with a semicolon. Every function ends with a semicolon. You could just find it in your keyboard, uh, right after the L, right after the L letter. There's this semicolon. You should remember this. Everyone gets this error. The first, if you're a beginner to programming, you might get this error every time that you teach run a program, because that usually happens to anyone. Never forget the semicolon. It just gives you an error. The code will not compile if you just miss the semicolon here. Every statement should end with a semicolon. Whatever thing that ends with a semicolon is a statement. Return is also a statement. This is also a statement, but we call this a return statement because this just returns the whenever the method, whenever this function is called, whatever defined to return here is going to be returned. That's the return is for. And this is the basic part of this C main method. And I should mention that every C programming language, every C program file should have a main method. That's the first thing that's going to be executed when the program is running. You can see the output here. When it runs, it just do all the compiling methods, it just do all the things that I told you earlier, like me. I just showed you that, okay? I don't remember. Whatever. I told you earlier that there's a mechanism of compiling, a mechanism of translating the code into machine code and executing it. Everything happens just in a single click. When I click run, it just grabs all the source code and compiles them and then translates that into a machine code and then executes that in the processor. That's what happens. And it just in a one single click. That's what's happening behind this run method, behind this run button. Okay, so let me preview this one. This is include. If I don't include this one, if I comment this out, this one's called the comments is something that's not being executed. It's not whenever something starts from double slashes, it's not going to be executed. It's a comment. Comment is something that we say, okay, this one's what is this doing? What is this doing? Let's say the int main. I'm saying that this is the method. Execute execute first. This is the method that executes first. One's going to be executed firstly, and then you can see the method body. The method body is something that's being executed. If I press run, oh, it works. Fun. But it's not, it shouldn't be working because the printf is something that's coming from studio.h. It shouldn't be really working. I don't know, something's wrong with this one. Okay, this is something that printf is coming from here. That's why this should work, but this shouldn't work. This should give me an error. Whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, printf is a function that's defined here in studio.h. I don't know, somehow it just worked, but it should give an error. Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, so let me tell you about these variables.